was at an assembly in my school, and he was talking about how the victims in the Columbine High School shooter thing were just people like everyone else, and that after someone dies, especially in a tragedy, people like to make them seem perfect. You know, now that they're dead, they were like angels, you know, especially children, because, you know, it's so awful to see someone taken out of their life before they've barely started. So people do that. But there's also the extreme of thinking they were awful and they're going to hell. You know, like Hitler. And he wasn't awful for that. That's a bad example. Like I don't know, who's someone like that? Like certain politicians. When a politician dies, they obviously have done good and bad. Depending on who you are, they've done a lot of good or a lot of bad, or a little bit of both, or whatever. And when they die, it's like, oh, thank God they're dead, they're out of office, and they'll never do anything bad again. But it's like, well, they've also done good things. You know, like I've seen a lot of people do this to party like enemies, you know, especially now that the parties are even more divided than they were before. They used to be almost the same. So, but it's really either way. It's like either you're completely evil or you're an angel that's never done anything wrong. And it's so awful to think of it like this, because they stop being people once they're dead. The memories are still there, but everything's put on with this lens. And you can only think of the good things, or you can only think of the bad things, and you can't think of any little middle ground that was going on between all of those incidents. The blank space that you weren't a part of in their life. Maybe they had struggles. Maybe they had arguments that you didn't know about, and maybe they had internal arguments that would just pin them against everybody in life. Have little episodes where they would just try to zone everyone out. Because everyone does that. They're people. Of course they do that. You know? But they weren't perfect. I'm sure they were far from perfect. And so are these people that we just label as bad. Like, especially when Michael Jackson died, right? Everyone was like, oh no, Michael Jackson. This wonderful, beautiful person that's done everything good. And then the other side was, well, he did rape children. He definitely raped children. Like, he's a rapist. And they only thought of him as bad, and they didn't care about his music. They didn't care about anything good he's done for the community. He did what he's done for other people. Just that one little, I don't even know if it's a rumor anymore. I don't know if they proved it. I haven't really heard about the rest of it, but there's that. And it's like, well, you can just accept both sides. You don't have to disregard all the good or all the bad when someone goes away, someone dies. They're both there. They're always going to be both there for that person's life. Nothing's going to change that. I had a friend, and he was awful. Ruined my life. I got it back together. I'm fine now. But it was awful for so long. And the hard thing was that I didn't realize it, you know. I didn't realize this person was the cause of it, because I thought it was me, and it's my fault, and I should just get over it, because I need to be able to deal with both sides of this. It's just I should be stronger to help support this person, but they're manipulative. How can I trust them? They lie to me all the time. They do awful things to me. They say awful things to me. But they're hurt. And they went to rehab. And rehab is a lot like dying. Not for the person that's at rehab. I mean for everyone else that knows them. Because they're gone. And you don't know how long they're going to be gone. I think in this case it was about a month or 2 months or something like that. But it was like, oh wow, we should all miss this person. They're gone, and everything's worse now. This is awful. I hope they're doing okay. But everything wasn't worse. Everything was so much better. Significantly better. Everyone was happier. Everyone who was his best friends, they were so happy. And maybe not so happy. You know, how happy can you get? But we almost never talked about him. And that can seem cruel, especially to people who only see him in a positive light. But it felt so good not to talk about him for once, just not to think about it. Not to think about this person who mentally abused me, who physically tried to make me do things I didn't want to do, who forced me to become someone I didn't want to be, who forced me to tell them things I didn't want to admit I wasn't ready, and say, you're welcome, I just took you out of your shell. Well, maybe I didn't want to be taken out right now. Maybe I'm too busy to think about this all the time. Maybe you just ruined me because you uncovered this little thing that I don't want to have in my life right now. And sure, it's suppressing, but for now, it works. And until I have the time to go through this, I'm going to keep it in this little box. So, I went off on a rant there, but bottom line, we shouldn't label people after they die. Labeling's a weird word for it. I don't mean like in a weird, social justice warrior way. I mean in a generalization way. Hey, my grandpa died. He was the best person. Oh no, my grandpa died. He's dead. And he meant a lot to me. But he was an alcoholic, and he did smoke. And he had an illness that came most likely from his drinking. And the doctors couldn't save him. It was too late, and he died. And if he didn't smoke and he didn't drink, he probably wouldn't have died that early. I mean, how early is 82? But for him, he was in great shape. He played baseball. He was a coach. He was great, but he just had weaknesses. And gambling and money issues. He's a sweet guy. He's wonderful. He's loving, but he does have issues, and it did cause him to die. I feel like that's a proper way to talk about people. And if I had to speak at a eulogy or a funeral of some sort, I had to do that, I wouldn't just say the times they made me happy or the times that they made me mad or sad. It's an awful way of portraying somebody. That's not how people are. They're not just black and white like that. You start off by just saying who they were to you. Then you go into certain things. And the most boring things that seem mundane to you or just seem normal or little stuff that doesn't really matter and isn't super memorable is the most important things, because they're most likely the most real that person has been with you. The little normalities, the little quirks they have, or certain ways they say words, or just generally things they do that aren't good and aren't bad. They're just them.